Hello. Hi. Can folks hear me okay? Oh, okay, chilling. Okay, we're gonna get started soon. Sorry everyone for the late start. We had a bit of a room mishap. So people I think are still trying to find the room, but we're gonna go ahead and get started. Feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat. If you're open to sharing, like if you're in any organizations or affiliated with any other like groups on or off campus. Yeah. I guess we can introduce ourselves. So this is like a public press orientation. Um, oh, sure. Okay, just the wall. They can look at the wall. um, but yeah, this is a public press orientation, but we did make a really big push to invite our already existing like Divest member and supporting organizations just so that we can give everyone the chance to receive this orientation. It does have some updated materials about ongoing campaign activities and plans and also updated demands that weren't in our original orientation that we're really wanting to get folks' like feedback, input, and also ideas for like how we can continue to wage this campaign. But hello, I'll introduce myself. I'm Kay. I'm the current General Secretary of Divest at UCLA as of like last December. I'm also in Anaheim UCLA as a chairperson. I'm passing this to you.
Okay, hi. My name is Ty. I use they, he pronouns. I'm in the Student Labor Advocacy Project or SLAP. And I'm also the Organizational Development Secretary of Divest, also as of like December. Okay, should I just pass the computer around like the whole room? Or how do we want to do it? Are we doing everyone? I don't know. Okay.
I was just this.
Okay, okay. Okay, yeah, wait, Medium, do you want to wait, is Medium on? No,
Yeah.
dead ass. If you are on, go be well. Okay, Medium is not on, thank God. Okay, they're just sick and we don't want them to work hard at all. Okay, cool. Do you want to check in? Yay.
Hi, my name is Asiya. I'm the Deputy Education and Propaganda Secretary for Divest Coalition. Happy to see you all on today.
Yay, thanks everyone for coming.
And scattered throughout this room and on the Zoom are a bunch of members of our steering committee.
Yay. Yay. Okay.
Looking around the room and
Yay. Okay, now do you want to use your mic? Or okay. Switch.
Okay. So what is UC Divest? Raise your hand if you've been to a UC Divest event or action or activity before. Who here isn't familiar with Divest and here is here because we want to know more? Chill. Okay. I assume there may be more people online who are not members of Divest organizations and want to oh no, I think you can hear me.
Okay. Can you guys hear me?
No, I didn't. Did I miss?
Okay, sorry. Okay, hello.
Wait, were people able to hear me just now?
Well, let's just
okay, well.
Okay,
yeah, they could hear it. Okay, so that's cool. No, there's new information regardless of whether you or not you're coming here as a person who's a divest or not. So, or are you muted now?
No, I'm
okay.
unmuted. Mhm.
So our mission statement is here. I'm actually gonna ask someone to read it, and then maybe we can parse it out a little bit. No, can you read it?
UC Divest is a coalition committed to the visions of anti-imperialism, anti-militarism, and anti-colonialism. We are composed of multiple organizations united against the University of California's investment in companies that profit from war, exploit natural resources, and destroy communities both at home and abroad. We call for the UC to withdraw all of its investments from these ethically indefensible corporations, including its use of BlackRock as a
So yes, highlighted it really emphasizes like anti-imperialism, anti-militarism, and anti-colonialism. What's not mentioned here, it might be mentioned in another slide, but actually the only point of unity to like apply to join the UC Divest Coalition is to be united along the lines of like divestment and a common cause of wanting to fight for divestment, but really most importantly, reinvestment in our communities. And so we have a wide range of member and supporting organizations that are not all focused on like solely fighting for divestment, but are all waging like their own campaigns around certain specific issues of different groups of people for different causes. But we're all really united under like the banner of fighting for change, specifically for the university to reinvest in students, because we really see that the UC's prioritization right now is not for actually paying attention to the needs of students and the wider campus community, including like workers, faculty, unhoused community members, and more, but is really prioritizing funding like these large corporations that really don't need more money and are actively contributing to the suffering of people here and abroad, even people like in our own homelands, and perpetuating the cycle of really like displacement and war that displaces our people from our homelands too. We can, there's like an emphasis on BlackRock because that used to be the only target of the Divest campaign, or like not our only target, but like our primary target. We'll talk about it a bit more, what BlackRock is.
Yay. Okay, so I can lead us in a bit of a, oh, hold on. In a bit of a political situation, which is basically just where we're at in the world right now. So I mean, currently very fraught political situation, as is pretty much always been the case for a long time. But I think specifically right now we're seeing a lot of changes in the US political climate that are also intensifying like destruction in other parts of the world. So obviously Trump was recently inaugurated as the president of the United States, and has thus been like intensifying the escalation of war with China, both in the form of like this trade war and stuff like that, but also just like increasing militarization and stuff like that in the Asia Pacific, and like notably using like countries like the Philippines as like essentially military bases in the Pacific to kind of amp up war in against China. And then we're also seeing the recent ceasefire in Palestine that has been violated like many times by the Zionist entity and by the US. And with Trump's recent like visit with Netanyahu, just promises to even further intensify the destruction in Palestine and the genocide and things like that, including escalation in the West Bank, and claiming more and more of that land and more of those territories. We're seeing a lot of new executive orders that see attacks on trans people, on women, on undocumented folks, on the climate, on like international students, on there's a federal funding freeze that's going to impact like many different entities. The recent thing with the Department of Governmental Efficiency, or DOGE, with Musk really trying to take a lot of power in the US government, and the attacks on like quote unquote DEI and whatnot that are really making people both here and abroad very unsafe, even more so unsafe than they were in the United States. And of course, there's also a lot of political repression that is attached to this, like them making threats to deport international students who are engaged in any type of political activism. Yeah, and such. And then we're also seeing even more locally, there's worsening living and living conditions in LA and at the UC. In LA recently, of course, there were the fires that were a preventable disaster that were caused by like climate change, but just a lot of corporate greed and whatnot that has like intensified climate change over the years. And then in response to that, instead of actually like giving material support to the people or like really helping LA get through that, there was pushes to bring in like the National Guard and further policing and stuff like that in the LA area. And we saw a lot of that manifest at the UC with workers being forced to work during the fires, and students not being evacuated for like a lot of time, and no PPE being provided to folks while the air quality was like very dangerous. We're seeing just in general increasing attacks on the homeless community and increasing policing in Los Angeles, with Karen Bass giving tons of money to police over the years. And and especially as we're leading up to the Olympics in 2028, the city of Los Angeles is really doing its best to prioritize profit over people and really make the people of LA unsafe. And then at the UC itself, we're going to go into more things about like what we're all experiencing here today. But I guess a summary of things that I think are pretty common issues that we've been fighting against over the years are worsening like living and like learning conditions, especially with like food and housing. So recently, I don't know, for those of y'all who were looking for university housing at all, if for any UCLA students, and seeing that now like triples are being turned into quads and like 8-person apartments are being turned into 10-person apartments, and etc. And these kind of degradation of living conditions without actually lowering the cost of housing or making housing more accessible, is very indicative of the UC's kind of general lack of care for its students and like willingness to just like get tons and tons more students to get much more tuition money and things like that, and then but not actually like house or feed them. And this then also leads to like worker issues. The what's it called? The amount of work that especially like career workers, but many workers on this campus have had to do is increasing as they're trying to increase the student population and things like that, and yet their pay is not. And working conditions are just very unsafe. There's workers who are experiencing like chronic pain issues because they're forced to clean like 3 buildings at a time, or do the work of multiple people. And student workers are experiencing tons of like exploitation without the ability to unionize or increase their wages and things like that. And then recently, of course, with the attacks on like undocumented students and things like that, like the Overall campaign has been fighting for the rights for undocumented students to be able to work, but they're still experiencing pushback not only from the UC Regents, but also from like the state of California. And then the UC is doing nothing to protect its marginalized students, like especially undocumented students who are extremely vulnerable right now, despite them making up a crucial part of the UC community. And then also we've just gotten news about things like AAP, the Academic Advancement Program, and other kind of academic programs and stuff on campus being defunded. And AAP specifically is one that serves like marginalized students, Black and brown students, low-income students, etc. And that is being defunded. They're threatening layoffs, which impacts like student workers who work in that department, as well as all of the students and people on campus who utilize those services. So these are just like many examples of kind of the general prioritization of profit over people that we're seeing both here at the UC and abroad. And which is what necessitates our current fight against that. These are pictures, these are pictures from past actions that we've had over the last year or so. It includes worker strikes when AFSCME and UAW have gone on strike recently, as well as like UPD, that like Divest folks have been able to mobilize out to support the workers in their fight for better working conditions and things like that, as well as like divestment from Blackstone and these other things that we'll go into. Obviously, the encampments were like a major part of this last year politically, and have also been just drastically changed the kind of political environment that we're working within. at the bottom left is an action that we did at Bruin Day and stuff like that last year. That was really fun. And there's other actions that we participated in over the last year that aren't pictured here. But yeah, the necessity of the fight has never been stronger. It's really, really, really important that we're kind of gathering the broadest coalition of people to yeah, wage these struggles and like actually improve these problems. So yeah, that's a political situation. Okay.
Yeah, this is just a timeline.
Oh, yeah.
We already looked at that. Cool. Fun stuff. A little bit on the history. Sorry, I'm gonna sit because my body is.
Do you want to unmute there? Okay.
But wait, what's
One
happening right
second.
now? Okay. Yes. Is this what we're looking at? Technical difficulties. Where's the screen share? Hello. Ah, yes. Sorry. Okay. But a little bit on the history of this coalition. This coalition actually started in 2014 originally. It's not on the slide. But this previous like formation iteration of Divest actually goes back to 2018 when actually there was pretty active organizing on campus. There were like various worker strikes, and actually pretty strong coordination between like workers, especially ASME and undergraduate and graduate students on campus, kind of coordinating together at the same time. Students really showing out for the workers during their like was it the wildcat strikes? No, different. Not the wildcat strikes. I think that was later on, but overall, like pretty high like coordination and militancy of the organizing on campus. And so in 2018, a group of students actually sat down and came together to sit down and like really do a deep dive on where the university's money was going. And so they sat down together, pulled together their research, and they're like, what company or like what corporation, what entity can we target? Look into the investments, find and kind of try to like target that specifically and see if we can wage a campaign to like pull money out of that and put it back into the students and the workers and the wider UC community. And so this actually started at UCLA and kind of branched out onto the different campuses, notably at like UC Santa Cruz, UC Irvine, UC Santa Barbara, to the point that around 2022 is when there was like a cross-campus kind of coordinating body to coordinate and wage the Divest campaign. Since 2022, there was actually a move in recognition that the level of development of the campaign was different on each of the campuses. There was a move to start setting up coalitions specifically on each campus because it was more of like a coordinating body, but not really like chapters on each campus. And so in 2022, we decided to like help some of the other campuses because we were relatively more developed at UCLA in our structure. So we helped some of the other campuses stand up a Divest coalition on their campuses. And now we have Divest at UC Santa Cruz, UC Santa Barbara, UC Irvine. There's also one that was initially we helped set up at UC Berkeley as well, but always looking to expand. And we're really demanding that the UC Regents divest from the war industry, particularly its use of BlackRock and some additional targets that will be mentioned later. BlackRock is one of the asset managers that the UC uses. And so the UC Regents will like partner with BlackRock as an investment manager. So it kind of allows the BlackRock to like invest its different funds. Yeah, and reinvest it back into our communities. And then that is a picture of one of the banners we made in action, kind of by Luskin Turnaround. Might look familiar. Yeah. These are member organizations. Do y'all see yourselves in there? Cool. Yes, very exciting. How many is this?
10.
10. Yeah. And in the process of recruiting even more as well. So you can see that it's like a wide range of organizations represented here, right? It's SHAP, Students for Justice in Palestine. It's the grad students, those who are really active within like the labor organizing here, Jewish Voice for Peace. There are also like cultural organizations that aren't necessarily explicitly political, like Samahang Filipino. Other coalitions are in the coalition, unions as well, or caucuses of the union. Yeah, a wide range of folks in here. And then I don't think we have our supporting organizations on here, but we do have supporting organizations, really Health Not Punishment, Ideas at UCLA, Faculty for Justice in Palestine, Students for Farm Workers, Pakistani Students Association. Any more? Yes, Fem News Magazine as well. There you go. Yeah. Always looking to grow though. So if y'all are interested in getting an organization in here that's not already here, yeah, we can talk about it. That's what this whole thing is for. But UC Divest, again, kind of talking about its early formation came together because of really a deep understanding that in order to change our conditions, we also have to come together, unite, and fight to change those conditions that we actually have to fight for the change that we want to see because our movements are deeply intertwined, whether it's the issues of, like Filipinos, whether it's the issues of our unhoused community, if it's the issues of faculty, we are really seeing divestment as a tool to address the issues that we're facing as a community, right? And so confronting that shared enemy and or also unified around the common strategy of divestment, knowing that we can really build solidarity to unify our movements and strengthen our collective action as well. So we did want to actually incorporate some discussion here, and we will broadcast like some of the main calls and demands of the campaign for folks to look at, but we also want to hear like what are some of the pressing issues that folks here are really facing themselves, that your peers are facing, that your faculty, professors, your neighbors are facing, so that we can also get a deeper sense of, what are like some of the most pressing issues that folks are really seeing themselves reflected in and want to take up themselves. So there are just some questions on the screen, but we can do like, if anyone wants to just raise their hand or just talk to some of the main ones that we've really been identifying over the course of the campaign have been housing, job security, financial security, healthcare and benefits, or lack thereof in all of these things, or inaffordability of them. Yeah. Open forum. Yes.
But with the executive order, I would like, I don't know, especially as a trans person, I'm so interested in like the name change system now, and I think like workshops around helping like community members figure out like what to do in this time, especially people like questions before but weren't sure how to move forward. Like I think trying to synthesize that information that can be done on the lines of like healthcare professionals and other like people in government, especially like the passport system, just aid like that to help people figure out how to move forward with finding care for themselves, especially on their own.
Yeah, and I don't know if folks online could hear, but yeah, they raised like really like in the wake of the executive orders, foreseeing issues with the name change system and thinking about like how can we as a coalition actually like support each other, compile resources, you know, sift through the information, figure out how we can protect our community and ensure, yeah, in the face of different fascist attacks.
I organized a question show, and I suppose through the conversations I've had with a lot, especially on housekeeping in the community, you know, I've always understood this, but I've come to realize more just how much of an ecosystem the UC builds around itself, like geographically, and how investments in, for example, groups like Blackstone impact the local community, gentrify communities, kick people out of their homes, and things like that. So I think it is just for the second bullet about how this affects us, the people around us. I think it's very important to understand.
I think as you already mentioned, like immigration right now is very sensitive, right? It's a really important issue, especially in LA, especially also on campuses. Just let people know that like this recently formed coalition across LA, like but having something.
Yeah, that would be great. Are you talking about the Union del Barrio?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, setting up like a local defense network is something that I can really see. Like our community banding together to do. We'll talk about it a bit later as well, but yeah, that's part of like the people we want to organize too. And we have ideas as like a member of the coalition, as a supporting org. So we also want to be able to like coordinate with them because they already have specific demands. They already are taking action to talk with like the chancellor and such. So seeing how we can also like coordinate and support their efforts there and really, you know, put the weight of the coalition behind our migrant students and community members. Yeah.
Can we stop and restart the screen share? I don't think it's working for people.
No. Okay. Yes. So folks have mentioned so far, like, especially with the current attacks of like the Trump administration issues around availing of services for trans folks, the ecosystem that the UC is building with regard to like housing and other issues, issues of migrants' rights as well. Yeah, these are all pretty relevant. How do y'all think the UC should be spending its money? Yeah.
I think the question of how UC should be spending its money is generally just how should corporations or groups be spending money. You know, obviously on capitalism, that's what UC is. It's a corporation that deals in education and indoctrination in many ways. Though, of course, I would prefer if the money was being spent on, you know, helping the students, helping the workers, contributing to the local community. But again, you know, with the investments that they have and the money that they're bringing out of those investments, it's a very tenuous conversation happening and of how that money is being procured, stuff like that.
Yeah. And just read, I'm like catching up on the messages here too. Folks are like saying that they used to work for AAP as well. Someone mentioned in the chat, and I think YDSA is taking up a campaign too to like be relieved of having to pay for laundry on the Hill. Yeah, major things. Yeah, it shouldn't even be a question of like why is the UC not spending money on quality education, and why is it going to anything else but that? Instead going to like actively degrading our experience here, militarizing our campus and the surrounding community. Yeah, I think this is important discussion and we can keep talking about it throughout today, but thanks y'all for like the discussion as well. Oh yeah. Then someone said the other day doing their laundry, most of the washing machines are almost always broken, and they're always flooded too. The rooms are always flooded. Yeah, and then we can talk a bit about how the US actually invests its money. This picture is actually from 2022, a pie chart of the UC's investments. There's, of course, the endowment, which is the largest blue chunk. Or no, the endowment is the gray chunk. The largest chunk is actually pensions of like faculty, of workers, and also grad workers, right? The TAs. The endowment funds includes rainy day funds for the university, but I think over the course of the last couple of years, we've seen during moments of like disaster exhibit the recent wildfires, they don't really actually tap into the rainy day funds. Instead of, providing hazard pay or like workers' comp for workers during the wildfires who may have like lost their homes or like gotten injured in the fires or had to like commute across the 405 under these dangerous conditions. They could have, actually probably pulled money from their rainy day fund to be able to provide that money, but instead they like helped facilitate a crowd fund that wasn't even like really initiated by the UC, but they're like, oh, your coworkers are crowdfunding for each other. I'll circulate this link for you. Instead of pulling from their rainy day fund, they have millions and millions and millions of dollars. And so the rainy day funds, like, what are they actually being used for? They're not using it. They're just sitting on top of all of this money. Examples of like the COVID pandemic, when people were dying en masse, they were actually racking up millions and millions of dollars through Ronald Reagan instead of, trying to make online instruction, making the transition to online instruction easier for students, instead of paying attention, especially during the transition back to in-person schooling, giving attention to the accommodations for disabled students and students who were trying to avail of like CAE, right? So we actually see that the UC really does have the power to make money move. It has the money to move things and make decisions easily, like call the cops as soon as they see that students are like mobilizing in front of Luskin Hotel, or whenever, as soon as they hear of like an action, they're already security officers and like private security and cops on bikes as soon as, like, even before mobilization start. But when people are really like clamoring for change and experiencing the worst of their conditions under a worsening economic crisis, the UC will not actually make the calls to help people, help the community that it supposedly serves. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else that's relevant to add here.
Yeah, I mean, I guess something that gets me every time is like, you guys see that it says 152, that's supposed to say billion. I know, it's supposed to say $1 billion. Or, yeah, or I guess, no, it says million, but like $152 billion is how much money the UC had in their investments portfolio, including all of these funds in 2022. Do you guys want to guess how much they have now in 2025, just 3 years later? How much money can you make in 3 years, right? Like, what do we really, somebody just put a guess up. What do you think, William? Okay. Yeah, it's hard to wrap your head around, but just 3 years later, they have $180 billion in their investment portfolio. How much was it before?
152
billion? Just
yeah.
2022. So in 3 years, can you imagine 28 your investment portfolio going by 30 billion with a B dollars? At the same time, you're crowding more people into their housing. You're cutting down on the cost of their meal swipe vouchers. You're
tuition hiking, you're canceling, you're laying off employees due to budget cuts, you're, defunding essential services. But you also had your investment portfolio grow $30 billion in 3 years.
Yeah, so what's really happening with the money? They're not even, it's just such a slap in the face, right? That like our conditions are actively degrading in front of us, and then the school's like, well, what are you gonna do about it? It continues to rack up profits, so we really see that like the priority is not people, but it's really like their own profit and lining their own pockets. So this is more on some of the like our member organizations, namely rank and file, have really done the hard and arduous work, or are the grad students, yes, the grad students have done the very hard work of pulling together a lot of research on the UC's investments, and some also on the UCLA Foundation as well. Yeah. And so these are some of the main ones that we pulled out from the research, main targets. And they're really, actually the first one is an addition that we do have to do a little more research on, but generally like weapons manufacturers. So that includes like Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman. You might be familiar with these names because they're like the jets, the planes, the bombs, and the various other like missiles and technology that's going to like really wars in our homelands and wars abroad. Most recent examples, they're really like Palestine and the Philippines, and also used for like local surveillance technologies. 1.3 billion in Sequoia Capital, which is really, in short, like surveillance and intelligence. We still have BlackRock here, but it's not as big as like Sequoia, the investments in Sequoia Capital and Blackstone. But BlackRock, fun fact, is technically listed, if you search on Google, as like the third largest, most rich entity in the world after the US and China. It's the world's largest investor in war, and particularly fossil fuels, and is one of our asset managers. And then 8.6 billion in Blackstone, which folks have already mentioned, is really responsible for like the housing crisis locally and across the US. It's really the largest landlord in the US. And it's not only responsible for displacement locally, like hiking up the price of rent in Los Angeles, but also displacement like in Palestine as well, buying up like estates. Yes. Would you be able to elaborate more on Sequoia?
So, I mean, more details will be found in this paper, as well as a little summary that is coming out real soon. How soon do we know? Very soon.
Soon.
I mean, among other things, the portfolio is super wide. I mean, these are some of the biggest ones, but if we had to really list like all the different businesses, whatever, it would go like there's like probably like 4 or 5 dozen of them. Anyway, what is Sequoia Capital? It's a sort of like big tech type investment firm, and besides investments in like literal like weapons manufacturers, also has sort of lots of ties in. I mean, modern day like AI type stuff, but also like more sinister sort of AI for surveillance, AI for weapons and targeting. There's a guy in the math department, my office mate, who like does research on like automated like target recognition and things like that. And so it's like these companies, many of them with explicit ties. In fact, like the founder of OpenAI, for example, or the co-founder of OpenAI, is a Zionist who launched another startup that is doing like safe super intelligence for the Zionist entity. So things like that, and that's also one of the sort of big into investment. Like there's a flavor investment that's Sequoia Capital. That's why, you know, it's one of the factors, I guess. That's all I can say.
Thank you. So these are really, this is just a portion of like the main ones that we could really find. But already this like small portion tells us a lot about how the UC is spending its money. Supposedly an institution for higher education. And this is what it is doing with its money. With like the workers' wages, with students' tuition, with like the donations that it's racking up from like alumni and other like important and notable people. Yeah, what exactly is divestment? What would it even look like to try and pull money out of all of these like heinous corporations that the UC is partnering with? I mean, I'm sure folks are familiar with like divestment in the context of like BDS, boycott, divestment, sanction. So this slide is really just talking about like what divestment is. Yeah, but do folks have any like examples of where they've seen divestment like successfully happen? We'll also talk about it a little bit in like past movements, but just wanting to see if people already have any examples.
I feel like I'm yapping too much.
No, it's fine. Go
I know
ahead.
Historically, there's been victories in like divesting from apartheid in South Africa, stuff like that. I'm not sure what the Vietnam War protests were able to achieve, if we were able to get any sort of financial divestment from that, but I know those were a pretty big deal on campus because they told me about it during my orientation.
SJP or
No, during the
Oh.
actual UCLA
Oh, so-
orientation.
oh
Yeah,
wow.
it was funny. It was before the encampments. And
Right.
they were saying how much they appreciate their social justice climate, and they use that as an example.
Yeah.
And I remember I turned to my mom and I said, "That's bullshit." I don't usually joke like Paris Roman mom. I said, "That's bullshit." She's like, "You're being so pessimistic." And then a few months later, everything at the encampment happened, and I was like, "Oh, it's okay."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yes, we will actually touch on some of those examples later. But yeah, the school also likes to toot, is that the word? Tout?
Yes.
Toot, toot, yeah, toot the horn. Yeah, they like to toot their own horn. They like to say, oh, we have such a rich history of activism. But then the activism, we in the recent years, they see the activism and they're like, wait, actually don't do that. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, divestment is really the selling or liquidation of assets, twofold process, draining power from the companies engaging in profiting off of oppression and exploitation. But it also doesn't end that divestment. There have been historical examples of divestment happening, and then the school finding loopholes to still invest in other companies or corporations actively displacing people and surveilling and really attacking people. So we also need to fight for reinvestment, right? Fight to get that money back into a place where we can actually avail of like the services, but we know that they won't do that without a fight, right? So it's really up to us to campaign and to have like very concrete demands for the university and to also build that on our own because we have the capability. I think folks might be familiar with like what it was like during the encampment, but we really saw like what people power actually looks like, and that it's really the people and the masses that are capable of making change and building our own, building what we want our own world to look like. So yeah. Oh yeah, we already mentioned BDS. It is a tool for like, if we were talking about the points of unity earlier being really that we're united to use divestment as a tool to address like the issues that our communities are facing. But in the case of our campaign, it's for people's liberation against imperialism, of which the UC is part and parcel of. Yeah. Maybe, could I have someone read this slide? Any volunteers?
Just like the full text.
Yeah.
Okay. I can't see all of it because the.
Oh,
Thank you. So what is divestment? Divestment takes resources directly from the hands of the oppressor and invests them back into our communities. It is effective and materially and concretely contributes to supporting our people and movements. Value is generated by students through tuition and research, and workers through labor, and lecturers through teaching us, etc., etc. And this value is exploited, and it is used on investments which work against our interests, not used to support us through meeting our basic needs.
pretty straightforward. Yeah, there's not much to elaborate on in this slide, but we can move on. So who are we targeting? We've mentioned actually a little bit, but our target is really the UC Regents. In the past like 2 years, we've basically been able to confront the UC Regents at every single meeting they've had at UCLA. Our recent one, we had one in last September, and then we also had one in last March of 2024, where we actually set up a tent city and were able to pressure the the chair of investments, Jagdeep, and he's in a slide in a little bit, but we were able to like heckle at the Regents meeting, and we were able to pressure Jagdeep to get a meeting with us. He actually like, while we were heckling at the meeting, he threw a tantrum and was like, I don't want to meet with you anymore. But then we were able to like kind of maneuver our way with the student regent, who was also trying to push Jagdeep to meet with us. And so he's a really interesting guy, and was kind of talking down on us the whole time. But the regents are 26 voting members, a governing board of the UC. It essentially has the powers of a corporation in accordance to like the California Constitution. The regents chair, they're all appointed by Gavin Newsom, the governor of California. And there are actually recent shifts to like who the current chair and vice chair are. But they serve really long terms. And if you look at their history, their backgrounds, a lot of them are actually like CEOs of accounting firms or CEOs of talent agencies, which is like, what does that have to do with education, right? A lot of these people are, if you look them up easily, you can find that there's someone who is like hoarding wealth or like, yeah. So Chief Investment Officer Jagdeep, this guy, he is actually worked in U.S. wealth management, Canadian and investment divisions of Manulife Financial. I don't know if there's supposed to be something in that other bullet, but the new chair as of last July is Janet Riley, and the vice chair is Maria Anguiano. The former chair and vice chair were Richard Lieb and Garrett. Is it Garrett? I forgot his name. Irrelevant. But Richard Lieb is still a regent. I think it says on the next slide that, yeah, he's the chair of the Academic and Student Affairs Committee. But the recent switch of like the regents, but chair and vice chair is actually really interesting because the way they're positioning themselves right now is as like women leaders. Yeah, girl boss, like CEO women, which is really interesting shift because the regents are a very like public target of many different campaigns and coalitions. And so the switch to like have Janet and Maria there is kind of like, what is that supposed to make us do or feel like? Is it supposed to make us feel like less bad about targeting the regents who are responsible for like the cost of tuition, workers' wages, how the UC is really using and controlling its money and determining what to allocate money for. And then we also have the student regent here, who's Josiah, a UC grad student in interdisciplinary humanities. The previous student regent was Marhawi Tesfai, and was actually a little more receptive to like meeting and working with UC Divest and trying to push for divestment on agendas, whereas Josiah has actually been a little more resistant, and he actually in the November Regents meeting where they approved the non-resident student tuition hike, he actually voted in approval of it. And so historically, the student regents are someone that we can try to like work with. Of course, we should be careful, but like we have been able to like try and maneuver and get our foot in the door with the regents through kind of like campaigning to get the student regent to move on it. But you know, they still avail of like the benefits of being a regent. And so Josiah's move to like approve the NRST tuition hike is really like a reflection of being able to like leverage that power instead of siding with students and trying to like make our conditions a little bit easier through not approving a tuition hike, which is like pretty bare minimum. It's really says a lot. And so we do have his business card. So something, just things to look out for when we're like really campaigning and trying to push the divestment campaign forward is like what can we push? What can we push these people to do, to pay attention to, and be really strategic about it. These are the different committees, appointed chairs, familiar names. SJP actually recently confronted Jay Schurz at his house last week. Fire, Compliance and Audit Committee. And then, yeah, just things mentioned earlier, the regents are really the ones who can make the money move. Every single regents meeting, they have their people with like less lethals ready whenever we mobilize. Oh yeah, I already talked about this earlier. But, they are a corporation in charge of a public trust, and they have full powers of organization and government, subject only to such legislative control as may be necessary to ensure the security of its funds and compliance with the terms of the endowment. So really, they have like a lot of unchecked power. Okay, examples of divestment. I believe I'm passing it off. Yes.
Yes. Okay, cool. So yeah, these are basically some historic these are basically some past examples of divestment movements and stuff like that, both at the UC and elsewhere. So yeah, I mean, many of us are pretty familiar with the struggle against South African apartheid and the struggle for divestment and things like that. Yeah, divestment was a really, really kind of pivotal tactic that was used in this time, yeah, to basically remove any financial investment from like companies conducting business in like or with South Africa. And the movement, yeah, happened. There was a strong student movement at the time to push for divestment from the university, and actually, like the movement. Kind of even before the anti-apartheid movement really gained, I guess, popular like support in the US, students were actually some of the first who were kind of pushing for divestment at that time. Yeah, and the divestment was such a kind of critical tactic in the eventual end of apartheid, or you know, like formal official end of apartheid in South Africa, that, you know, when Nelson Mandela was freed and stuff like that, he went to UC Berkeley to like speak to the students there. And especially at the UC, there was a lot of students who were pushing against, or for divestment, started at the HBCUs and then went around nationally. Yeah. And yeah, in 2015, this is another kind of recent example, but the UC divested from private prisons again as a result of pressure from the African Black Coalition and some other organizations and stuff like that. But yeah, so they did a lot of like email blasts and phone calls and stuff like that, and were able to push the regents to divest $25 million from these big entities up here. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Okay, and then another one that was a successful campaign recently was the divestment from major fossil fuels companies. So the fossil free UC coalition consisted of a bunch of different organizations, for like student organizations as well as like faculty, alumni, and staff and stuff like that. And they campaigned for 8 years using all of these different tactics. And then eventually the academic senate passed like this resolution to pressure the regents to divest. But it took a really long time, and part of actually, I think, what gave them success in this time of the campaign was that they picked a specific region as well. I don't remember the name of who they picked, but there was a specific region that they picked, and they really targeted them, and did demonstrations outside their offices and things like that, to like isolate them and show them as like an enemy of the people. And so however, like there are still kind of some hidden investments that the UC has in fossil fuels and stuff like that. So yeah, that's another one. I think that's it. Yeah. Okay, cool. So yeah, we can talk about the current Divest campaign. Do you want to switch? Okay, so switch.
Yeah, so hopefully, that was a quick primer, but hopefully one thing that you can take away from the fact that even just since 2015, there was 2 different instances of UC divestment, is the fact that this campaign is winnable. And that, like everything that Kay said in the beginning, we chose it because it's strategic, because it's something concrete that we can do to apply pressure on these institutions that are really upholding what we know to be like very exploitative, harmful systems of imperialism, militarism, and strike a blow. So that just goes to say that for the same reason, that's why we're waging the UC Divest campaign today. I think everybody in this room is familiar with it. We just went into a lot of depth about that too. Let me put this at the top. But I guess like more concretely, I'm just gonna kind of talk a little bit about where we are right now in the Divest campaign. Y'all heard earlier that this campaign's actually been waged since 2018, which might be surprising to folks who really heard about it when it was so in your face you couldn't ignore it at the encampments, which was really a beautiful eruption of mass opposition and outrage. But yeah, we've been around for a while, so where are we now? So as of now, like y'all saw some basic information about our coalition. We exist at UCLA, UCI, UC Santa Barbara, UC Santa Cruz, UC Berkeley. However, there's other divest formations at San Diego, interest in forming divest coalitions at other campuses. At Merced, there's been divest actions at Regents meetings. So we exist across campus. Here at UCLA, we are 10 member organizations, and I think 6 supporting organizations. And we really have been in a concerted period of planning for a while now. In fall quarter, you guys might have noticed there weren't like public actions led by Divest. We were really hunkered down trying to create a concrete tactical plan that could guide us through the period of the whole year, basically, from the fall of 2024 to the fall of 2025. So we created a tactical plan. It's a longer document, but what it has is 6 guiding objectives, I guess you could say, for what it is that we want to accomplish in this period. And if we do things right, we'll get these goals met. So I'll just read them. First, we want to increase the organizing capacity of Divest through improving our committee system. That's more of an internal thing that you might not be as familiar with if you're not already part of it, but we have structure to our coalition. We have member orgs, we have reps, we have committees that carry out education and propaganda work, outreach and recruitment work. We have supporting organizations in addition. So how do we take all of these moving parts and get them to be one strong coalition that grows and organizes people and applies more and more pressure against our target of the Regents until we win, right? So how do we wield these moving parts? That's strengthening our committee system. We want to strengthen the unity of Divest through improving the engagement of and relationships between member and supporting organizations. That's why I'm so happy to see you all today, because especially those of you that are in Divest orgs, you are members of Divest. You know, if you're in a Divest organization, you're part of the coalition. And without you, honestly, we won't be able to win the campaign, because it can't just be the representatives of each organization, right? It really has to be, in reality, our full coalition. Yeah, so doing that and growing our coalition through systematic recruitment and outreach, because there's a lot of other orgs that would be supportive that we have yet to actually bring into our coalition. Third, we want to establish Divest as a coalition that actually addresses the needs of community through taking up their issues. So there's a reason we started today by actually asking people, what are the issues you experience? It's not just so we know and then we sit on that. But the idea is that we actually we don't have to wait till we win divestment to start fighting for reinvestment. Does that make sense? If we already know the issues the community are facing, we already know the things that need to change, and we already have people power because we have a coalition of 16 organizations here at UCLA alone, we can already start addressing our own needs, organizing people in the process, and growing the movement overall to grow our organizing power and, again, be able to apply more and more pressure on our targets. So that's why we really want to be able to act fast when an issue comes up they got it. Yeah, whatever it is, right? Whether it's right now, the issues of the defunding of our services or our programs, what have you. Oh, yeah, we want to develop our political education to be more consistent, accessible, and creative. Yeah, develop our propaganda work. It's coming back, trust, to be more anticipatory, accessible, and creative to counter the lies of the UC and outmaneuver their disinformation campaigns. You guys have seen the emails that you get from our chancellor and our regents that, yeah, will tell you that supporting Palestine is anti-Semitic and they would rather die than divest, whatever. The things that they tell you in their emails that every student wakes up and reads, they have a very convenient propaganda system that goes straight to your inbox. So that just means we have to be more proactive and actually counter that, right? By reaching people. We also want to isolate the Regents, which has been said before today, by uniting all pro-divestment forces to strike coordinated blows that pressure the Regents to divest. So just list out the different people that could be a part of that. Yeah, how to actually make this a mass movement. So I'll pause there. Actually, this has been something that we haven't been able to share with our full coalition in one room. I think your reps for your orgs have probably shown this to you, hopefully shown this to you. But yeah, I'd love to just hear initial thoughts on what people think actually on this being our goals, this being the things we want to accomplish, and if it even looks like it makes sense, or if there's anything that's missing. Yeah, also knowing these are just the overall objectives. Oh, yes, there's somebody with their hand raised. Go ahead, Emma.
Hello. Thank you so much for presenting this. This is really cool to see what the strategy is, where it's coming from. I'm sort of coming from the UC staff member union side of things. And one thing that I've heard among our reform caucuses, let's say, is that our unions are not overall in support of divesting enough. They weren't overall in support of peace in Palestine enough. And so one thing I'm hoping that our reform caucuses can do is push our unions to adopt that, because as soon as we organize in that direction, we're going to make it like a bad idea for them to not support divestment. So I don't know if you want to include getting the unions more involved, pushing unions leadership to support divestment, but I think that's a really important thing. because they're pretty, I mean, they're pretty powerful.
Oh,
Sorry if that was
okay.
like, oh, sorry if that was
Yeah.
super confusing. I'm
Yeah,
like
I mean, I think
so
that's a
quite
really,
seated
really
right
good
now.
point.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, I thank you for raising that. I mean, I think it's like kind of what it's saying in part 6, but it's worth noting explicitly the power that unions have on our campus, especially if we think of it in terms of like, what's our leverage? Unions have a lot of leverage actually against the University of California.
And when I was still on like the inside of like,
any other thoughts or feedback, reflections?
I was just gonna add, when I was like on the inside of like the caucus and power in my union, they were all talking to each other and saying like, you know, I think we're gonna lose too much support for a contract campaign if we come out in support of Palestine. And at our
So
at our
actually,
convention, they're like too political.
technically, I think it's every UC or like 90% or something passed resolutions for divestment through their student bodies last year, especially during the spring. So that happened, right? But I think like how we actually leverage that can still be improved, because like, do we even talk about it when we're, you know, negotiating, for example? So I think that's a good point. And then I think yeah, luckily something that happened this relatively recently is FJP actually joined the UC Divest Coalition. So now we have like faculty connections that can organize in the academic senate, which is one body we previously didn't really have like an in. So yeah, I think that's definitely part of like uniting with faculty as well. Yeah. But that's actually, oh, huh? Did you raise your hand? I'm tweaking.
Oh, no.
Okay. 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 Yeah. All right. I'm gonna keep us moving, but I appreciate your guys' feedback, and I hope that when you look at this, it kind of clarifies like what to do. Though of course, then it'll just be on us to do it. Yeah. So a little bit about like what we're doing right now, what we've been doing in the past period. Development of the tactical plan. We were working on that throughout the fall quarter. We elected a new secretariat. Which means that we've had our organizers develop in the period of the past year to the point that they're ready to help to take on more leadership in the waging and leading of our campaign, which is really exciting. We have a great secretariat. We have been regularly participating in Westwood Mutual Aid, and yeah, especially when it was reached out to the Divest Coalition to like help take that up more and help support. And then 2 fights we kind of took up to limited degrees of success. When we caught news pretty last minute of the fact that there was going to be a tuition hike for out of state, some undocumented students and international students, we really wanted to take it up, calling for pressure on the regents, email blast, text banking. However, yeah, due to some of the like limitations of how far we reached, I think with actually getting people to take that up, and it only being a day or 2 before the regents meeting and their insatiable greed, we weren't able to stop the tuition hike. So that is, you know, something to reflect on. And also like what now then? How then will we continue to support international students, you know, those students that are affected? And also in wake of the fires, we really tried to take up daily, if not like very regular, relief efforts around the area, distributing protective equipment, masks, water. And then actually trying to also pressure the university to have classes be hybrid. Though when we actually contacted the UCLA Academic Senate with that, they basically said that like if this is an issue facing you as a disabled student, like take it up with the CAE individually, showing that they refuse to offer like services in general for whole bodies of students, faculty, and workers. Instead, they'll be like, on an individual basis, go talk to this already understaffed and underfunded, you know, program and try to get some individual accommodations, which we already know there's problems with CAE. Yeah. So that's some things that we've been doing. And then coming up, we have, we have really, our goal is to grow our reach on campus to faculty, to staff, to students, to workers. So what we want to be doing is more in-person outreach, just like on the ground, talking to people, flyers in hand, clipboards in hand. And that's something that we are gonna
start doing hopefully like within the next week. So if you wanna help spread the word about what we know to be the true nature of the university, but also what can be the solution, organizing, divestment, and reinvestment, then I would really encourage y'all to join these efforts and just come hang out, come talk to people. Yeah, we also have actions targeting specific regions. SJP has been doing beautiful work already with targeting one of the most atrocious of the regions, the most like staunch Zionists and like firmest opponents of divestment and Palestinian liberation. We also have another region that's going to be coming to UCLA campus to give a talk at a class sometime soon. The details on that are TBD, but we already have it on our radar. And once we get more information, we want to like plan some kind of action response. So keep an eye out. And if you want to be involved in that, please do. And then we also have a lot of orgs that are interested. I think some are here today repping orgs that want to join the Divest Coalition. So we're really excited about that. And that's why we're happy to have you here. And we're, really hoping to like also bring new people into this fight, new orgs into this fight. And some of the others is a goal of ours is to have when the regents are going to come to campus in March, basically. They have meetings every few months on different UC campuses. So March 18th, 19th, and 20th, they'll be here at UCLA meeting, coming to us, which usually, we don't actually have such easy access to them. And we already know that right now with the way that UC has been refusing for years now to actually give equal access to work to undocumented students. And now, in addition to the fact that the UC is refusing to actually offer protections to undocumented students and workers in the face of really like extensive ICE sweeps and raids all throughout the county and beyond. We really want to coordinate with all of the groups that are fighting against the regents right now and converge and have this be like a big massive convergence where we can really pressure the regents. We also know that AFSCME workers were on strike previously and will go on strike again, probably within the quarter. So in the last strike, we were able to mobilize, and we want to do that again. So really what we want to see is like, how can we coordinate with all of the groups that are trying to fight for change and for improvement and come together and do that in step during the regents action and just in general, outside of the context of the regents meeting, coordinating more with ideas and AFSCME, the union that represents career workers. Ooh. Oh, yeah. And apparently UPTI is doing their strike vote right now. So also, how can we coordinate with UPTI? Link up and exactly. Like what if several unions at UC strike and all at once, right?
Real
It'll
fast.
shut the university down. And what if in their contract negotiations or during their strike, we can build with them to the point and they can organize to the point that strike can also be for their own pension funds to not be invested in war and weapons and genocide, right? That's the concrete leverage that unions can have.
Also, I believe AFT and one other one. What's the other? Oh and 4011, my dumbass, are going to also be like contracts expiring in 2026, and so and like usually AFSCME contract fights have gone on for like years and years, or like around like 2 or 3, so there's like strong possibility that like AFSCME, UPTI, AFT, and 4011 will all be having their contracts expire and potentially going on strike in the same year next year, so which would be a major hit to the university. So that's something we can think even further ahead in trying to maximize.
Our contract was going to expire 6 months earlier, and then our leadership pushed through a big vote to extend it. So
I think that shows some of the limitations too of the unions on campus. They because of a much larger context of the US labor movement have often been created into like apolitical unions that only fight for like bread and butter issues of workers and employees. So also like, I think it kind of goes back to like what they were saying about like the limitations of things, like where can we establish unities? Where can we join where can we join forces to like maximize pressure, and then where do we know the limitations of the institutions that we're working with and within.
Wow. Let me copy this so I don't forget.
Okay, other information. If you work alongside anyone who's a staff research associate, clinical research coordinator, lab assistant, or other up to represented employees, please tell them to vote yes, authorize a strike. Yeah. So that's something actionable that we can all do, right? Yeah, so that's, anyways, this is like a little bit of a summary of what we've done and what we want to do going forward. And this is just in the immediate, like this is just looking through like up until the end of March. Yeah.
Can I just make a comment about the importance of including like meaning explicitly pro-Palestine, like the points of unity? I don't know where this is. I think it's really important both because it's critical one, like in Palestine, there's opportunities for victory, the resistance, and in America, there's a problem with people being progressive except for Palestine. It needs to be competitive. So
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think like SJP founded the UC Divest Coalition, the struggle for like the liberation of people everywhere is really like advanced, and well, as we know, right? I'm preaching to the choir, but I think that's important. And we're also a little bit behind on this, but we've been working on a more concise like points of unity document that can help be our guide in the recruitment of new organizations, and also like having us understand like on what basis can we unite with what people to bring them into this fight. So that's another thing that's definitely an ongoing effort. But yeah, thank you. I'm gonna move us along to actually talk a little bit more about the Regents meeting. Sir, so the Divest Coalition, right? 10 member organizations, reps from all those member organizations make up what we call the steering committee or the steering body. We met recently and we drafted some objectives for what we hope to accomplish out of this Regents meeting when the Regents bless us with their presence and finally come, touch the earth, and come to our campus. What do we hope to get out of it? So here, can somebody read? Would you be down to read just the 3 bullet points at the top for me? Thank you.
Objective: pressure Regents into a meeting and concretely negotiate towards our campaign demands. Versions of the coalition ideas and apps me. Mobilize every group on campus that we have built with and activate our broad space. Establish ourselves as a genuine threat to the region.
Yeah. So this is what we thought of for what our goals should be. Objectives just being like, what do we hope to accomplish out of this, right? So this is what we drafted, but actually I wanted to stop for a second and get your guys' input. Before that, let me read the last bullet point, which is like, if we get our goal and we pressure the Regents into a meeting and we do concretely negotiate, this is what, as of now, we've kind of pinpointed as some of the main demands that we can put forward, but I also would like your guys' input on that. So full divestment from all weapons manufacturers, from BlackRock, from Blackstone, and from Sequoia, and reinvestment in food, housing, healthcare, quality education, and good and livable jobs. So those being the 4 main areas that we want to target for divestment. There was a slide a while back, some of y'all might not have been here for that portion, where we really talked about how there's about $800 million in weapons manufacturers across the UC's different funds. There's over 8 billion with a B dollars in Blackstone, over 100 million in BlackRock, and I think 1.3 billion in Sequoia Capital. So really those being some of the main either groups of companies or corporations themselves that the UC is investing in that are major perpetrators of militarization, the genocide and occupation of Palestine, but also pretty much everywhere in the world where you go, where you see US militarization, we can see the complicity and the involvement of these corporations. So whether on the objectives for the Regents meeting or on the actual things that we're demanding divestment from, I just wanted to pause and get your guys' thoughts.
How specific, would you go into detail about, like, specific sectors of food, housing, healthcare, education, jobs? Like, is this just like the broad thing, and then like after negotiation, you get more specific? Or will you keep it broad and then like there? I just bring that up because, especially in terms of education, I know that with a lot of the federal funding being pulled from DEI, it unequally and disproportionately affects ethnic studies classes, humanities classes, any type of social science. Sorry. So like focusing and prioritizing reinvestment into those departments that have been slowly just like gutted throughout the past few years. Again, like I don't know if that's part of the negotiation or your goal is to keep it broad.
Yeah, no, actually that's a good question. And honestly, I just think we need to flesh it out more because like we know that from our conversations, people from our investigation, like these are areas where people are suffering, but like I think it's the imagining like, well, what could we actually have, right? What could that it's kind of hard to think even about like what a UC that genuinely invests in people could look like. But we need to do that though, to like kind of have clarity on our demands too for reinvestment. Yeah, so I do think that's something to think about more, and that's a really good idea on what the demand for reinvestment in quality education could look like. I mean, something that also comes to mind is like people who are so integral to the quality education at UCLA are actually grad student workers. And they've been fighting so hard for such a long time for their like full extent of their demands to be met. And the university always says they don't have the money for that. So I do think that's an aspect as well that we could look at. But yeah, it might be good for us to actually have like a separate full coalition meeting or forum where we think about particularly reinvestment. I also think that would just be beautiful to think about what we want that to be and look like. But yeah, maybe that's a next step that could come out of this.
Yeah, I think that's so hopeful because, I mean, it's that physical, tangible manifestation of what you're talking about, right? Where it's like, we don't have to exist in this constant scarcity. And I think people are so used to living in that scarcity that they get used to it and desensitized to it. And I think that's also how to engage people that aren't in the room here and aren't, maybe as motivated or dedicated to seeing something like this happen. Because again, it's this intangible, immaterial future. I think people just like going up to like, what do you think in the perfect situation, if UCLA had all the money, where would you hope it went, right? And then kind of proposing the possibility of, well, you could get that money if we were listed,
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful actually. Yeah.
I'm not. Say it? Not, yeah, like
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if people online could hear, but like what they were actually sharing is like the need for us to think about what we could have, right? Like the need for us to like concretely not be vague, but like actually imagine like, the UC we could be living in, and like really hear from people, talk to people, and like how that can be something that allows us to reach people who aren't already like pissed off and agitated about what we don't have and what we're against. But like everybody has things that they need, honestly, at this university that they're not getting. So how do we get people on that basis too? Yeah, Eric is saying we could have free healthcare services for everyone on campus, including workers. One of the basic things that AFSCME workers are demanding in their contract is just for their health rate to just stop going up, not even for it to go down, but it just like tripled in the last year without any consultation from workers. My coworkers at the study were like, what do we do? Like, I remember walking into the workplace that day and all of my coworkers were like down and they're like, because my healthcare just fucking went up 3 times. And we had no say in that. Yeah.
I was gonna say it's very reminiscent of what Ramsey said about postal hegemony. How a lot of the people, especially at this university, a lot of the students have grown up being convinced that the penultimate future is one that serves the ruling class and their interests. And I think that's really got to be goal for like poly-ed and prop, kind of reverse that programming and convince people that standing in solidarity with workers and other student boards at the end of the day would be advocating for their own best interests. Just that, again, all comes to
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. Whoa. Oh. Sorry, I'm so bad at Zoom. Go ahead.
Sorry. This is not exactly related to the conversation that is being had right now, but I think one thing that's not reflected in the demands that we have been trying to push for ongoing is actually a reversal of the recent non-resident student tuition hike. Optimally, we don't want any tuition hikes. Ideally, we don't want tuition at all. But you know, to something that we actually that the steering com had actually been discussing as like what do we think we could push the regents to do is like a reversal of at least the most recent tuition hike. Obviously, that shouldn't ever be the end goal, because we know that they will try to find loopholes. They'll try to avoid doing that at all. But I don't know. I don't know if that's something that folks would be interested in doing, but especially like this is also affecting like incoming students who don't even like incoming students when they have their Bruin Day here in like April or May, they won't even know that their tuition will be higher than like the recent round of students who got accepted into UCLA, which is so fucked up. Again, the thing of like the UC Regents are not consulting with the people on this. They're just doing like under the table shit to like move money around. But I think that could be one aspect of like the demands too.
I have a question about like in previous successful divestment campaigns. Have they also successfully like gotten reinvestment, or is that like the negotiation we're going to do anyway? Is there like a historical precedent to this measure?
I don't actually know about that. Not from my understanding. I think it's something that we're gonna have to do for the first time. Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, because that's like it's hard, honestly. Because like even unions who have contracts and like labor law that allows them to negotiate for improved conditions, wages, etc., they struggle to get more than crumbs from the university. We don't have that kind of like legalized collective bargaining power as a coalition of people that they just call like stupid and anti-Semitic and move on, you know, but still like that just kind of I think is like a wake-up call for us on like how much mass pressure we're gonna need. Yeah.
I have a comment about the kind of fossil fuel divestment. So basically, it's a really important picture, I think, for divestment. But what they actually did was really a very partial divestment, and there's still very expensive fossil fuels. And so I think that's an area where one, they're weak because they really overstated how much they divested. So it's a strategy to go after that. And two, having the accountability is going to be important for all the other divestments. So that might be a big.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think like that's where we can also link up with people who do have a strength in research. I think like our graduate students are a great resource in that sense. Like things we want to learn about like the history of previous movements, about like how UC's investments work, what are the loopholes when they agree to something. Like I think that's really something good to arm ourselves with. Yeah. Yeah, but I guess just bringing it back, like generally though, do people agree with the essence of these objectives? And do we feel like everybody in this room is gonna help us achieve these objectives? Because that is what it's gonna take. I think especially I'm looking at like the first one and the third one. Well, the second one will help us accomplish the first one and the third one, but like I do think it's gonna take pretty intense organizing. We have about 5 weeks. Yeah. And also this is finals week. We've done it before, but it's intentional that the regents always come on finals week because they think we'll be too tired and busy to organize. Every time. But last time they did a finals week, we did a 3-day. Yeah, like sit in sleeping, dude. Sleeping on like asphalt.
Go take my final. Can someone?
Yeah. Yeah. Like.
right, but then we have to take finals, so we'll just go in the tent, just go in the tent.
Yeah. So if we'll take like finals, you know, we had students taking their finals outside of the building where the regents meet on their laptops while undie run is happening. So like we'll do it again. Yeah. Wait, I had one thought that I don't think is here. I'm sorry, I know you're thinking, but I also am thinking. I think for our demands, if we're hoping to converge with ideas and asking, we have to uplift their demands. Does that make sense? Like, what do quality jobs look like when undocumented students don't have the right to work at UC, right? When the UC Regents already fucking agreed to that. Did you guys know that? Did you guys know that the Regents agreed to opportunity for all, said they would sunset it for 1 year to make a committee to think about how to implement it, and then just fully went back on their word? Right? So I think like part of our demands is really coordinating beforehand with the groups we want to mobilize together with and uplifting their demands. That's just my thought. That's not here.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just thinking of like other forms of, I think something that we've been struggling to think of is like, how can we differently engage the regents and apply pressure in a way that we haven't necessarily engaged them in before? In addition to like what folks have been mentioning about like, what will it look like to really like challenge the regents? And I don't know if we've tried it before with the regents, but I know something that I've seen as an example in other campaigns is like, we're annoyed at the fact that they allow us to like go do public comment for what, 1 minute, 2 minutes? And that's like their way of being like, here, you can give your democratic input. And then every time they end up just like kicking us out. And they also only allow like any given number of students or community members inside at a time. Some things that we've done are like, we link arms and we stay there until they like disperse us or call for a dispersal order. Something we did during the encampments, not necessarily with the regents, but with, was it the vice chancellor? Yeah, Darnell Hunt. We were like, come meet us. Rather than us going to them, we were like, we are challenging you to like come to our table. I don't know, that's just something that I've been thinking about in terms of like what the regents action can even look like too, and relatedly like the demands that we'll even present there. And then if they don't show up, it's like, okay, well now we'll expose you for not showing up, because aren't you supposed to be concerned about your constituents, your community members? Yeah, sorry, I don't know if that's like a different thing too. But.
Yeah, I mean, I think like that gets to a good point, which we're not going to have time to do this today, but I do think that to plan to meet our objectives, we're going to have to start action planning like soon. We want to give ourselves at least a month, not the few day scramble that, you know, due to the nature of things often like is what happens. So I think like our next steps, if you're here today and you're interested in helping plan our region's action, we're gonna have to think more about what that's gonna look like. But if you're already interested, you know, come find us. We'll get your contact information. And then we're gonna have to like schedule a concerted planning meeting for this action soon, and then create our planning committees, you know, do the like start planning. So yeah, and then thinking about like the particular form that it's gonna take is also something we don't want to put off until the last second. So, you know, that's already something that you can be on the lookout for. But for the sake of time, I think I'm gonna continue to move us along. But thanks y'all for the input and discussion. Okay, who here isn't in a Divest org? Raise your hands. Okay, so maybe we're not gonna do this. Yeah.
Is anyone online not in a
Yeah, I can't raise my hand.
Oh,
because I
true.
don't see the
Yeah,
reaction.
online folks. Is anybody online not yet in a Divest organization?
Me.
So Zach sent out like the info to all the members, and I was like, so wait, we are, but then I saw the thing, I was like, we were not. So I'm gonna expose it. Wait.
Wait, we want you guys.
We want you guys.
Yes.
Oh, well, I thought, like, I'm just kidding, but they sent a paper. And so maybe
Oh.
then they're supposed to be-
Maybe. They're not a supporting word.
Not formally, but I think they might have filled out like the interest forms in the event. I'll follow up with you.
Okay.
Yeah, because it would be awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
Also, technically, news magazine or like student publications, we got an email that one of the student publications was like, actually, we're not allowed to affiliate with you.
Oh,
But-
bullshit.
Yeah.
But hey,
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll still do it. Yeah. Okay, so there's a couple people here who aren't currently in Divest. Well, I think there's one person online who's not in a Divest organization. But yeah, since the majority of us are, and we're a little over time, we are gonna heartbreakingly forego speed dating today. You were gonna get the chance to speed date our beautiful 10 orgs, but instead you will have the chance to fill out our interest form QR code, and we will get back to you about you joining whatever organizations you want to join. Because for context, we're not an organization or a coalition, so if you want to join the coalition, join a member organization. Yeah, sorry guys, we can date another time. Yeah. Okay, I'm done yapping. I'm switching out. Okay, hello. So now we're gonna kind of start to close out the meeting today, but before we do go into like more closeout information, we're gonna have a little discussion. We have 2 questions up here, but feel free to just like raise a question or any comments that you want to make. The 2 questions are, what's one takeaway you got from today? And then how will you push forward the fight against US militarization and war? Does anyone want to answer? Oh my God, there's so many hands in the air. This is beautiful. Thank you. Froggy, go. Yes.
I don't have anything very interesting to add, but one takeaway is like, yeah, I mean, I came in about an hour late, so I missed the first half, but being for the second half is, it is kind of the urgency and the necessity of working as a coalition, not just individual member orgs. Like, the only way we are going to make any progress is to really work efficiently, fast, and together. We need as much like leverage as possible. As for the second part, God, there's too many things I cannot say. But
Yes.
just being vigilant, trying to talk to people about it, for the things I can say, and just helping in the awareness and doing the work in our work. I'm not sure what I can say.
Yeah, I agree. Because like I think a lot of what we kind of talk about is what we can get from the university, but it's still important to understand that the university is our enemy because of like who they are, like at like their nature as like an imperial institution, as a corporation, like who the UC Regents are. Like no matter how many of our demands actually get met, they are still going to be our enemy because they are the opposite of who we are, like in our like essence and in our nature. So no matter what, this is like a lifelong commitment to like constantly fight these institutions and these people. So we can talk about that a little bit more with the next steps, but I think that's really important to keep in mind. Does anyone else want to answer one of the questions? Wow, yes. Ty, go.
Okay, yes, I think in general, like yeah, especially if you're thinking of the history of past divestment camps, I mean, basically we can just say, but I think, yeah, like coalitions are really important, like bringing together all of these various fights that we're all waging. I think like there's so many examples of like one fight that like gains a little bit of traction and then is like easily shut down by the university because of like one group of people like mobilizing, whether it's like workers, whether it's undocumented students, whether it's like yeah, just like any like fossil fuel movement that like got co-opted and then like they didn't actually divest, you know, things like that. Like I think what gives us strength is the fact that we're bringing together like many different movements from across campus. There's yeah, there's like
This, our coalition is like really big when you take into account all of the, like the full membership of all of our different organizations, and it can be so much bigger. There's so much like, actual support on this campus, and we just have to like organize and coalesce into like, one body that I think, can be so strong. Just very, thinking so much about like just the power of, bringing together all of the workers and students and community members from all, we're all kind of in the UC sphere of influence and being able to like, just really fight hard. Yeah.
Online people talk.
How do I?
Online
Oh.
folks, I mean, what are you trying to do?
I wanted to see if anyone was in the chat.
Oh, yeah, you just click there. Anyone online?
Ooh.
Ooh. Are we gonna bring this back to our member orgs, our member and supporting orgs? A coalition is only as strong as the organizations that put their weight behind it. So we really do have to genuinely like cooperate and coordinate and unite our other members who aren't here today to really take this up and help flesh it out. It'll take a lot of people power.
Okay. Wait, Kai, did you want to say something? Okay. If not, we can move on because I'm not going to force anyone to talk. Other than Rodney. Wait, how do I? Okay, calls to action. These are some calls to action, like also events that you can go to that are coming up soon. So SLAP is going to have a worker roundtable right after this at the Public Affairs building that I don't know the number of.
Yes.
Yes. So go to that and then
Guys got the wrong room.
yeah.
6-6-2-0.
And then on Thursday at 4 p.m. SJP is going to be having.
Sorry.
How do I do that?
Oh, wait.
Okay, well, Kai and Kay always mix me up. While Kay does that, SJP is going to be having an organizing fair through Our People's University, and it's going to be centered around non-student organizers. So some of the orgs that we are going to be having come through are SWANA LA, PYM, Nodatol, the Stop LAPD Spying, amongst others. So like this is a lifelong commitment, and I like organizing around like our vision through like Palestine liberation, anti-imperialism, like what our points of unity are. And for a lot of us, we are students that are only here from like 2 to 4 years. So this is a good way to also interact with organizations that you can join after graduating or even now. We're still trying to get a location, but the flyer will be posted tomorrow, hopefully, or today. But yeah, it's going to be Thursday at 4 p.m. on campus. And then Anak Bayan is having a unity call and then a mass action. Their unity call is going to be
Tomorrow night.
yes, tomorrow.
Yeah, I can explain more. February 25th, when the action is, marks the 38th year that the dictator president Marcos Sr. was ousted from power in 1986. So we are commemorating it again this year. We actually held an action for it last year, and Divest did speak at it, and we're opening up the planning to everyone here to join us in commemorating this massive hallmark for the Philippine movement, which is ongoing because Marcos Jr., his son, is the president right now and actually removed this day as a national holiday, historical revisionism. So we're excited, and we are inviting people to attend our unity call to do the initial planning tomorrow night. Yeah.
And then Students for Justice in Palestine alongside Grad Students for Justice in Palestine is going to be having an open community meeting tomorrow from 7 to 9 at the Center for the Study of Women. It's like right across from Jimmy's. And we're going to be talking about like policing and kind of like repression, but not like centering repression. Just want to make that clear. But it's going to be talking about policing, and we have a slideshow that was presented at a USAC meeting as well. So if folks do want to come out to that to kind of have that discussion with our community, then that is also something that you can come to. And then this kind of has to do with what Erin was saying earlier about the community defense trainings, but Rank and File with Unión del Barrio is going to be having one of those community defense trainings on campus this Wednesday at 6 p.m. in this building. There is an RSVP link up there, but yes, I think that's a good way to kind of learn more about what we can do about the ICE raids as a community and how we can take care of each other and take care of our community, especially those of us who are in a place in society where we can take that up as like a priority with the way that we organize and practice self-care. But yes, and then another weekly is our mutual aid. It's on the corner of Westwood and LeConte. Just kind of going back to the notion of a lot of our campaign is what we can demand from the university and the UC Regents, and I know we talked about how like they weren't supplying us with like personal protective equipment when the fires were happening, and how it's something that we had to take up. This is something that we will always have to take up, and something that we should take up is creating that community for our people and to give out resources for ourselves and for our community. So mutual aid is a very good and important way of practicing that and taking it up as like part of our politics and our daily practices. So if you are able to come out to mutual aid, that would be beautiful. And then joining a Divest org so we can continue to mobilize how we are going to plan how we are going to mobilize the UC Regents from March 18th to the 20th. And then I have the interest form link on the next slide. And then they mentioned earlier the weekly outreach. I don't know if we have like details ironed out for that, but when we do, they will be sent out. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Join the
And then-
ODC committee
yeah.
if you want to be involved in the process of bringing that together.
Yeah. And then I think other calls to action that aren't on the slide are like, if you go to like the ideas Instagram, they have like I think their most recent post is like some calls to action that we can do as like community and take up to help them further their campaign and get their demands, especially like meeting with the chancellor to protect like undocumented students on campus and continue to push for the overall campaign. But yes. And then this is the interest form. And then those are some resources. They have like links to like articles and stuff about previous divestment campaigns. So there's the first section is talking about South African apartheid divestment. The next one is about Vietnam protests. And the last one only has like one link, but it's talking about like the importance of kind of disrupting speakers and like their events through like especially like anti-normalization with like kind of like we've had experiences of Israeli like foreign ministers and stuff coming to our campus, and SJP has like disrupted those events, and even just like what SJP allegedly did with going to Jay Sher's house.
Allegedly.
Yes.
Sorry, I meant to say that earlier.
Yes, but yeah, there's some resources on those, and I think that's a doc that we can continuously update with more links and stuff to understand how divestment has been won in previous divestment campaigns and what went wrong with those campaigns that we can learn from and what went right that we can learn from. But yeah, so yeah, you're
LS. Yeah.
only 1 minute over time. Yes.
Some last things I'll flag that were on the slides, but to keep on our radar, just taking into account the conversation that we had, we didn't fully get to like flesh out all of the different ideas, but we'll keep it on our radar. And so hopefully have more information, more initially fleshed out things is fleshing out the demands with some of the more particular information regarding like food, housing, health, but also knowing that the school won't be our savior. We also have to fight for these things and build up our own defense networks, build up our own support systems to do what the school won't do for us. Planning for the Regents meeting, we'll keep that on our radar and hopefully get it moving along. Also thinking of ideas for like a localized community defense network, which luckily UDB is helping lead that training on Thursday. That some of our orgs are doing, participating in and coordinating with them. And then just noting the point that folks had mentioned earlier about really intentionally incorporating Palestine in like the points of unity, which will also hopefully have those more ironed out very soon. Yeah, thanks y'all.
Not in Divest that want to join Divest, you should come up to me or someone else. And then if you're in a Divest org and want to join the Divest committee, do the same, do that as well. Also, yes. Yay, thanks everyone. Guys, I see that I have a